Melissa. Okay, it's yours.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. So we're starting with public comments, right? So is anybody online have any public comment to make? I don't see anything. What? Seeing none, I think we can move on to reviewing and approving the minutes for September 25th. And I can't remember even if I went to this meeting. Was I here September 25th? Richard, you have a comment. Oh, you're still on mute though.
Sorry, I was a little slow in the uptake on the last one. I'm just wondering whether the public even knows that these meetings exist and what we do to publicize them, and whether there's anything we can do to make sure that they do become public meetings if the public really doesn't know that they're out there. So that was my comment.
Is Jim on the line? Because yeah, Jim.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, so we follow a similar process for public notice that we follow for the REB meetings. So we send out a notification through our subscription mailing list, and we also post this on our Energize CT calendar.
So everybody who's getting notifications for EEB meetings and all that stuff gets notifications for these meetings as well?
Everybody that has specifically requested notifications for this joint committee.
Okay. All right, that's good to know.
And then on our end, similar, we post it to our website on our events, but we also have we have to post everything with the Secretary of State. So the Secretary of State is usually our public log for everything. But I think your point is right, Richard, in this case. Let's figure out let's be conscious of this next time and see what we can do.
Yeah, we typically get a lot of engagement with our our residential committee meetings. So I'm actually surprised that there are some people on those calls that probably would want to come to this meeting. So I am surprised if they did get a notification that they did not. I'm actually not looking at who's here, but usually we get like more than 40 people at the res committee meetings. I'm trying to think the typical. But yeah, it's a good note. Thank you, Richard.
I just we just don't. I've never heard public comments at these meetings, so I'm wondering what the distribution is. So thank you for that information. Just wanted to raise that. Thanks.
And in case it's helpful, Deep obviously has quite a few distribution lists or others. Yeah, anyway, happy to work off in the background, Brian, others to support however we can.
Great. Thank you, Becca.
So I would make a motion to approve the minutes for September 25th.
Great. Do I hear a second? Is there a second?
See, I think Deputy Commissioner DiNicola. Let's see, Joe, are you okay there?
Yeah, I'm here and I can second it.
Okay, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, thanks. Moving on to the regular meeting schedule for 2025. Did we approve these?
Yeah, why don't I speak to the process for setting these? The quarterly meetings and the dates that we determined have been set as a result of years of kind of what's happening during those moments in time, middle of legislative session, beginning of legislative session, various comp plans being planned. So these overall dates, kind of a regular schedule of, I don't know what this is, the third Thursday or whatever of the month of the quarter, so we've kind of fine tuned those dates over time, and just been consistent with those year after year. And generally what we do is we run these dates through the chair. So Chair Watson sends her regards today. She couldn't be with us here today. She's out of the office. To confirm those dates with her, she gives us the thumbs up, and then we bring them forward to the committee for consideration. And then once the committee approves them, we set them into the various schedules.
If I can jump in here, Brian, just to give even more context, I know this year there was a bunch of coordination as well on the back end with Jim, with the EEB schedule, as well as with Deep for the CTAC schedule, and a bunch of other public meetings. So a lot of work has gone into figuring out what dates work for everybody to try to avoid shifts. So anyway, just wanted to applaud everybody who worked on that, because I know it's sort of calendar Jenga for mapping out a full year.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I'll just note that I will be on maternity leave March 19th, so won't be able to make that one.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I would make a motion to approve the schedule for 2025.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank
Joe.
you. Perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions or nays? Okay, great. It passes. Thanks, everybody. Okay, let's move on to plan coordination. Looks like first we've got a report from the Connecticut Green Bank.
Yeah, so I'll do this just kind of overview in terms of where we are, just to give folks some context for our planning process. So we're on a fiscal year that begins July 1st through June 30th. So in the May timeframe of each year, we gather our Budget Operations and Compensation Committee, which is chaired by John Harity. We bring forward to the committee for consideration a number of different things that are budget related, revenues, expenses, as well as investments, budgets that we intend to fulfill over the course of the fiscal year. We work to set targets for our various programs. Those things are discussed and deliberated on in several meetings in late May, early June. The Budget Operations and Compensation Committee then recommends the board's consideration and approval in the June meeting, so that starting in July, we're in a new budget and planning cycle. We then take a mid-year review. So in the early part of January, our team will meet again with the Budget Operations and Compensation Committee to recommend any proposed revisions to the budget or targets for our comprehensive plan. So that is coming. I don't anticipate many proposed changes from the staff, John, on budgets or targets. So just to give folks a sense of our comprehensive plan in terms of where we are, as you all are familiar with, as overseeing the CLNM, we have a similar requirement per statute to have a board-approved comprehensive plan. We're really focused on implementing various programs over the course of this fiscal year. So our key focus on our incentive programs is our continuation of building the market for energy storage through the Energy Storage Solutions program. Our key areas of focus are continuing to build customer demand, specifically in the residential sector, as we are behind our targets on the residential sector. Many may know that there's a public policy, I think it's Public Act 2153, that sets a 1,000 megawatt battery storage target by the end of 2030. through the Energy Storage Solutions Program, the goal is to achieve 580 megawatts of behind-the-meter residential and non-residential deployment. We're ahead of the game in terms of customer acquisition on commercial, behind on residential. But when it comes to deployment, many of the commercial projects are still working through the interconnection process and planning. So those could take several years. So our team is focused on being involved in interconnection processes to support those property owners move their projects through. And then, of course, ultimately, we want those systems dispatching to the overall program design, which is to say, one, we want those end-use customers in the residential and non-residential sectors who are deploying storage to receive the resilience benefits from them, in some cases, demand reduction benefits for commercial. But we also want to make sure that in collaboration with our utility partners, Eversource and UI, that we're achieving passive and active demand response dispatch during the summer and winter peak periods. So all of that is really grounded in cost benefit analyses, all the different cost tests, which is kind of fun to watch and observe. They just wrapped up their annual review, and the teams at the utilities and our team here at the Green Bank are working a way to implement the various orders that PURA has directed. So that's the incentive programs. Financing programs led by Mackie Dykes. We're continuing to implement across a number of different areas. Our residential Smart E-Loan, our commercial property assessed clean energy programs, which both last year expanded to include resilience measures, one per statute on CPACE, the other per our expanded authority for environmental infrastructure under the Smart E-Loan. So you could now take out water-related loans, resilience-related loans. So we're just working through implementing that, working with the contractor community and families to offer those through our community banks and credit unions. The SBEA, we'll hear about the Small Business Energy Advantage from Stephen Mackey later on today. And then our solar PPA lease plus storage offer with our focus on the multifamily affordable housing segment through the Residential Renewable Energy Solutions Program. That's probably among our top priorities as an organization, and we're going to hear Mackie give us an update on where we are on some of the exciting projects that are coming through that program. And then lastly, our environmental infrastructure program. So as I was noting, we're going to try to begin to build the market for financing of resilience-related measures through our CPACE and Smart E-Loan programs. And then we have a Green Bank Capital Solutions open RFP program, which will be available for environmental infrastructure investment, which could be agriculture projects, parks and recreation, land conservation, water, waste and recycling, a number of different climate adaptation and resilience projects that we could be receiving through that program. So our team's super focused on getting those things, those priority areas moved this fiscal year. And then, of course, with the presidential transition, we are diving into IRA implementation, specifically around the National Clean Investment Fund through one of the three winners, the Coalition for Green Capital. The Connecticut Green Bank is a sub-awardee. We will be utilizing those resources to support not only our multifamily affordable housing activities, but also our electric school bus strategies with DEEP. We're super excited by that. So we've been working through regulatory processes and working with our DEEP colleagues there to figure out how we can address Public Act 22-25, specifically the section of policy that relates to 100% zero emission vehicles and environmental justice communities by 2030. Solar for All, again, with our partners DEEP through Project Sunbridge and our other state partners, Department of Housing, the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, DECD. We will be implementing single family and multifamily solar storage associated upgrade program specifically targeted at vulnerable communities to increase access to these technologies for our vulnerable communities. And then, of course, all of those tax credits. We want to make sure we're bringing not only the 30% investment tax credit, but also trying to identify opportunities for adders, the low income 10 to 20% adders, energy communities 10% adders, and if we can get to domestic content adders, we will. Working towards IRA implementation in 2025. There's no telling where all of those things will be after 2025, but we've got our heads down, focused on implementing those programs. So that's where we are on our FY25 comprehensive plan. Happy to take any questions. Right.
Hi, this is John Harity. I just wanted to add just a brief comment that the process is never ending and exhaustive. I mean, the Green Bank does everything possible to figure out the what ifs and what if this happens and what if that happens and all the permutations thereof. And it was been particularly intense because there was an intense application period to get some of this money, followed almost immediately by the change in administration, which signals that we better hurry up and utilize the money before somebody decides to take it back. So they've really been working, without stop on this stuff for a solid period. I don't know, the last 9 months, a year or so. Brian, would you say?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. I'm sure a lot of people on the call can appreciate the getting towards obligations, commitments, all those sorts of things that everyone is working towards now as we head towards January 20th in the transition.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'm curious, did you get any public comment on your plan?
Good question. I don't know. We don't put it out. We follow a very different process than the CL&M. Just kind of looking ahead at the slides that are in here. But I don't believe we do. We do them very programmatically. So where we're looking at, say, multifamily affordable housing or electric school buses, we'll have facilitated public conversations. So we do it more programmatically as opposed to planning wise, and the programs are the foundation to the plan. So that's probably more of our process as opposed to having the plan kind of be opened. It's more program.
I'd just add that all these programs have stakeholders, and then the eventual stakeholder is always the community, but beyond that, there's advocacy groups, there's community groups, there's parent groups, and as the particular programs come up, that I think that the bank gets a lot of incoming as to what would be good in the opinion of people that work on these issues and all that, and certainly my organization, the Connecticut Roundtable on Climate and Jobs, we talk to the Green Bank people all the time, to say, we think this would work, this won't work, et cetera, et cetera. So it doesn't come up in the public comment section of the meetings, of the Green Bank meetings, but certainly the telephone lines and the computer lines are humming with input all the time, I think.
Yeah, on the program side, we have a lot of fun with it. In bring stakeholders together. We'll have visual artists come and do note taking. So not everybody likes written meeting minutes. Some people are moved by imagery. So we do things usually through our programs that way in terms of seeking public comment.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. If there are no other questions, we can move on to the CNLM plan.
Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Brian. For those that don't know me, my name is Jillian Winterkorn. I work at Avangrid. I'll go over the first few slides and then I'll turn over to my counterpart, Steve Bruno at Eversource. It's been a big year. We're excited to be approaching 2025. This shows the overview of the plan development for since March last year to this point. There will still be a plan update in March 2025, but like I said, we're excited to start on the implementation side of this plan. In March, we started with developing priorities, and then we went through a lot of back and forth with budgets, getting the final PSD, and getting the final plan filed on November 1st. We did have public input sessions along the way, and we responded to those comments in the plan. Next slide, please.
Also, for those of you that don't know what PSD means, it's the program savings document that determines how we determine the savings of the program measures that we do.
Thanks, Melissa. Typically referred to as a TRM in other states, but we use PSD in Connecticut. An overview of the plan savings and the benefits are shown here. So the total plan budget for the 3 years for both companies is roughly $700 million. That is split by 72, 28, 28 going to Avangrid. And then our savings are shown here. We are measuring kWh in gallons and MMBTUs and CO2 equivalent in our systems. Next slide. And then our 3 priorities. Our first priority is decarbonization. So energy efficiency as you typically know it. We also have DR in there and electrification. So all our heat pump measures are falling under that. Our second priority is equitable access. We did a lot of work here with our EJCs this year. We're going to continue to do that work. We have a new DEI consultant coming on. We're doing a lot of mapping in our systems to make sure that our programs, we're ensuring the benefits of our energy efficiency programs are equitably distributed. And then energy affordability, this is where the Green Bank comes in a little bit more, and Brian went over some of the programs. This is focused on financing. So all of those financing programs that you saw on his slide, we also want to make sure we're leveraging federal funding. Next slide. Steve, this is where I was going to turn it over.
Sure. Sounds good. Good morning, everyone. Steve Bruno. These are the core programs in the residential sector, retail products, the HVAC and water heating equipment. That includes budgets for heat pumps, new construction. Avangrid has a behavior strategy program still. There are the core programs HES and HSIE, the weatherization programs, multifamily initiative, active demand response, and residential financing. The plan that we filed breaks out what we're doing in these are those programs as well as the budgets and the anticipated savings. Next slide. With regards to financing programs, we have a slew of them. The microloan, the energy conservation loan, the SMART-E loan, landlord loan, pre-development energy loan, low-income multifamily, Lime loan. I think the ones I want to just kind of quickly mention is the SMART-E loan. We're going to see that's already been doing great. You know, Green Bank created that program with a large amount of lenders. I have a footnote at the bottom that Energize CT heating loan sunsets in December. So we expect some of the program volume to shift over to the SMART-E loan program, where customers can finance the balance of the cost for whether it's insulation or heat pumps or HVAC investments. And I just put a note at the bottom. I don't know the residential loan fund. I know Brian, if you guys hoping that, I know that was the deep worked on the RFP for that one. So that was kind of a question when Richard, Jillian, and I were speaking the other day. Is there opportunities for that loan fund to help some of these programs? If anyone knows that, I'll kind of pause there. Go to the next slide.
Hi, I had a question. When you're referring to, this is John Harity, when you're referring to heat pumps, do you mean like a generic category of heat pumps, or do you mean geothermal heat pumps?
It would include all of them. So air source, ground source, geothermal are all in that category.
And
so are there a lot of geothermal heat pumps being installed?
Diane's, I don't know if you have an idea of the volume, but it's not that many. Maybe Jillian from your side too as well.
Yeah, I could say that we typically see them on the new construction side, but because of the cost of installing geothermal, we're seeing mostly air source heat pumps.
Thank you.
Right, this is Diane Dalrosa from Eversource. The volume for air source heat pumps is significantly higher than ground source heat pumps. And it's new construction. We do have some conversions from oil and propane as well.
Okay, thanks. Like I say, if anyone knows the residential loan fund, we were on a call with congratulations to the deep team that helped pull together the nice Inflation Reduction Act. The first one, the HERE program, was approved by DOE this week. And so that program is going to add additional funding for heat pumps, weatherization for low income, moderate income customers using federal guidelines. So we expect that. But then one of the slides we were on with DOE, Brian, they had mentioned that there's combinations of companies that are braiding the funds of the residential loan fund along with the IRA HERE program. So I wasn't too aware of that one. So I just put it as a note on the slide if anyone knows about it. Otherwise, we'll take it as a research team to figure it out afterwards, Brian.
I see it. I assume that's
Okay.
Becca. Let me try to set some context. I think what that is. I'm
Yeah.
sure it is underneath the IIJA, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, was an energy efficiency revolving loan fund formula grant. And we've been working with DEEP on that programming for the last year. And I think it's gone through a couple of iterations because of federal requirements on those funds. Becca, I'm not sure, or Mackie, where we settled. I think it's either multifamily buy downs or single family Smarty buy downs, I think. But maybe you want to jump on in.
Yeah, no, happy to just give a little bit more context. Yes, we're actually meeting with DOE today to try to make that decision. Just letting folks know there's been a lot of back and forth at the federal level, primarily around Build America, Buy America, and Davis-Bacon requirements. Unfortunately, initial decisions were made, so we made an initial application based on those early guidance. Then the guidance changed. We had to submit a different application. Now the guidance has changed one more time. So we are trying very hard to get a final answer today to then make a decision with the Green Bank and finalize everything before the end of the year. But that said, just for scale for folks, I'm not going to remember the exact dollar amount, but I do think we're talking a little over $1 million here in formula funds. And again, primarily looking for interest rate buy downs, but not necessarily sure which part of the market segment it'll be helping yet.
Sounds good. Thanks.
But yes, there's context for you, and I hope to give you good news in the next few weeks.
Yeah, we when we met with Richard, we were just thinking maybe there's an opportunity for that to help support some of these programs along with the IRA grant. So great, thanks so much. Next slide.
I have another question though.
Oh, go ahead.
I thought you were talking about the revolving loan fund that Connecticut is establishing through statute for multifamily affordable housing. Does that enter in here somewhere?
I think it will eventually. So just a little bit of process there. DEEP is still working on, there was a statute change last year to enable some of the funds, all of this is state bond funding to set up this revolving loan fund. Last year, there was an amendment to the statute that allowed some of those funds to be deployed as grants. DEEP is planning to issue a proposed, pretty much a straw proposal on how to shape this program. We obviously want a lot of public feedback here to ensure that we're meeting market needs, right, and not competing with other market products that are already sort of serving needs. So there's a lot of work to be done and coordination around it. In terms of timing there, I'm just not sure when exactly we'll be able to launch a program because we need a lot more feedback from the market than what we currently have. And then B, because it's state bond funding, there is also a whole process of going to the bond commission, receiving those bond funds, and then being able to set up the program. So I just don't have a great timeline for folks. So I probably wouldn't be, planning 2025 around it, but I'm very hopeful by 2026. Yes, we would also have this program helping the market as well, which I think is really exciting.
Great, thank you, Becca.
Yeah.
I had a question in this regards as well. Where are we in regards to other states, I guess, in terms of mandates on new construction that would just save energy in different ways? Does anybody know?
I think I can take a little bit, but I think Melissa actually will probably have the best real life experience. But we are on the latest, or we had moved to the 2021 IECC for our base code, which is very exciting to be up at that standard for. And in addition to that, I know that the Department of Administrative Services is actively looking to move to the next efficiency code that was released in 2024, so the 2024 version, as quickly as possible. And so I expect them probably in the next year or so to move to that one. So I will say, as a state, we're strongly committed to staying up with the latest base codes, which is really exciting. And then separately from that, of course, there are efforts on sort of the state level through the Department of Administrative Services and through our high performance building standards to ensure that executive branch buildings and buildings that receive a substantial amount of state funds are also going above and beyond even that base code. But that said, obviously lots of people are raising their hands and probably know more than me, so I will toss it over to Melissa to navigate.
Okay, thanks. I'll go to people with hands raised first. Bernie.
Good morning. This is Bernie Pelletier. Just a question. The 9 blocks that you're illustrating here, where, if I'm a member of the public, where do I find these? I'm on the Energize CT site and I see some of them, but I do not see all of them. So for example, I don't see the low income multifamily energy. I don't see the Navigator Development Energy Loan. I don't see health and safety revolving. And conversely, I do see the Connecticut Hospital Association Trust income. So bottom line, where would the public learn about the existence of all these opportunities? Thank you.
Sure. I haven't checked the Energize CT site in a while. Bernie, I'll check that. There are sometimes a little bit tricky where you have to pick a certain segment and then eventually it pops up. So I'll double check that. But sometimes some of the programs are offered through Capital for Change, so they be in their website as well. And then also on the Green Bank, may link over to them as well. But we'll double check that and make sure the flow throughs. If someone, Diane, if you're familiar with the links of each one of those, feel free. Otherwise, I'll just follow up and make sure we can find the links in a good spot. Maybe even add them to the chart as well.
Got some good stuff here.
You got
want people to find it. Thank you.
Okay. Who's GL? Oh, George.
Yeah, George Lawrence here. Just to answer John Harity's, I think it's John's question. I put a link to the Energize Connecticut dashboard in the chat, and that provides quantities of heat pumps and types of heat pumps if he's interested in looking.
Yeah, there's a lot of information on that dashboard. And I would also say, to Bertie's point, that is a good catch, that we do want to make sure that those websites have the full complement of programs offered. So thanks for that. In terms of codes, I think Becca did a good job of characterizing how we're moving in Connecticut, which is really just adopting the latest efficiency codes. And so, I mean, in terms of the country, we're pretty far ahead of the rest of the country in terms of the efficiency of our codes, but we're not the leaders. So there are other states that have put more efficiency into their base codes, or also have the ability to have a stretch code that municipalities can voluntarily adopt to make the codes more stringent. So I'd say we're ahead of the pack, but we're not leading. Did you have any other questions related to that? Oh, Diane has her hand up.
I'm not sure if it was already mentioned or not. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm going to sneeze, so just bear with me for a second. The other thing about the Connecticut new construction program, in addition to adopting these codes, we also are all electric. So we're not incenting anything with any other fuel types. Just wanted to make sure that we mentioned that as well, because that is, I think, a first in the nation. So anyway, just wanted to bring that to you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Diane.
great note, Diane.
Well, while we're on this slide, just real quick, I want to make a nice compliment to the Green Bank, the way they negotiated a Smarty loan, Brian and team. Because you worked with that loan loss reserve and kind of negotiated with the lenders, I think the rates that that customers pay are relatively attractive. I know that, not to compare to Massachusetts, but in Massachusetts, the fund buys down the loan rates to zero for customers investing in heat pumps, and they indexed it to the prime rate. And when the prime rate went to 8.5%, it's dropping now, but they were paying like 8.5% plus a point to the lenders, so they were buying loans back 9.5% to down to 0%, and then letting loans go up to $50,000 per customer. So it was a huge drain on the program budgets. But I think that what the Green Bank did in their setup for the process was pretty good, so that customers can get an attractive rate and then get access to financing at a decent amount to cover the costs of heat pumps, which are pretty high these days. So that's very good. Next slide. The C&I programs in the plan, there's the ECB, the new construction program, retrofit program, and then the Small Business Energy Advantage program. We have a BES, which is Business Energy Sustainability, and then all the companies do active demand response, and the next slide has the C&I financing programs. So for C&I financing, we have the small business loan. We'll talk about that one, and the muni loan a little bit later in the presentation. There's a third-party C&I loan program where we have a small interest rate buy down, but the customers still basically pay slightly below market rates. And then the CPACE program, and then the Connecticut Hospital Association Trust program for pretty much Eversource customers that are electric hospitals. And so it's electric only measures, and it's hospitals. It was funded by a grant through Northeast Utilities years ago, and it's just a revolving loan program. And I think that might be, there's one more slide, which I think Richard's going to cover.
Yeah, so we may want to spend a little time on this. I think this is our opportunity to sort of get this initiative kicked off. Richard Fazy, Energy Efficiency Board Technical Consultant. So thank you for leading the way, Brian and team, on as part of the plan for looking at coordinating efforts between the Green Bank and the CLNM programs. We followed suit, but sort of changed flavor a little bit on the CLNM side as part of the plan that was filed November 1st. We included a performance management incentive, or PMI, for the companies this year. So they will receive an incentive for following through with this and putting in place the plans for an initiative to work together with you. But we thought that this might be a good opportunity to sort of compare the two resolutions. Well, resolution on your side, I think that's what you had called it. I think it came out of a previous discussion with your board, but it ended up in the plan, and then the PMI language on the company's side, because there are a couple differences here. So maybe it'd just be helpful I'll just read through each of them. I've highlighted what jumped out as the differences, and then we thought it would be good to sort of come up with a plan for next steps and how we're going to move forward with this. So on the Green Bank side, the resolution was to enable greater investment in and deployment of technologies such as solar PV, battery storage, heat pumps, weatherization, appliances, controls, in affordable rental, single-family, and multifamily properties to realize important benefits for tenants, for example, reduce energy burden, i.e. no more than 6% annual household income, increase climate resilience, reduce greenhouse gas emissions through the conservation and load management of the Energy Efficiency Board and comprehensive plan of the Connecticut Green Bank Board of Directors, and through greater coordination of incentive and financing programs for state and federal sources of capital. With that, we sort of, I guess, expanded it somewhat and had a couple tweaks on the CLNM side, and the adopted metric that was included that cut across both residential and it was a cross-cutting metric that cut across residential and CNI, was to develop a plan by October 1st, 2025 to offer residential and CNI customers in Q1 2026, a coordinated initiative for solar photovoltaics, electric vehicle chargers, and battery storage in combination with CLNM program offerings. The plan shall include details on the benefits, incentives, and financing opportunities, along with how the companies will coordinate with their respective internal teams, the Connecticut Green Bank, and other state and federal initiatives to encourage the adoption of renewable storage electric vehicles, along with energy efficiency upgrades. So, as you can hear and see with the highlighting, while the Green Bank focused on affordable rental, single and multifamily properties, on the CLNM side, we expanded this to include sort of a broader initiative around residential and CNI customers. We added EV chargers to the mix of the other measures we're looking at. And then as well too, on the company side, just because these programs typically come out of focus on the CLNM programs we're talking about today, but there are also other teams and groups within the utilities that don't typically work together. So we wanted to sort of use this as an opportunity to figure out how to break down some of those silos and coordinate both internally within the companies and then outside with the Green Bank as well too, as we figure out how to put these initiatives, how to come up with a plan that would put these initiatives forward. So really the effort this year is to, at least on the CLM side, is to develop a plan by October 1st. And I think that the companies can sort of speak to what we've talked about to date. Want to sort of name some leadership within both the Avangrid and Eversource teams, and then also talking about potentially hiring a consultant to help facilitate this effort too. And with that, I'll turn things over to Jillian or Steve if you want to add anything at this point.
Sure. Thanks, Richard. And yes, we spoke, and we'll assign, I'll start off with take the lead from the Eversource side, and then bring in the various people we need to. But we're thinking, Brian, as we have a lead at the Green Bank side, and then create like a kind of basically a small group team to take on the assignment, create a timeline, and then see whether or not we need additional resources, external or internal, to kind of pull it together. We've already, to a certain extent, started some work with Mackie and team on financing opportunities to kind of leverage together. I know we expanded the SBA Muni program to take care of some customers that get, storage systems or charging stations, but there's more that we can do.
Thanks, Steve. We talked about doing a kickoff to just make sure that we're all on the same page. Brian, if you want to talk about that with your team and try to find a date that works with us. There's going to be a lot of brainstorming up front because these are not programs. They have their own programs, they have their own funding and regulators. So we really need to understand the barriers and opportunities.
Hi, this is John Harity. I would just add that we talked in the past about ways that these different programs could kind of be bundled to customers, solar along with the electric vehicles and battery storage, that in an ideal world people could buy into a package of those things with incentives to do that. I don't, it sounds like that's part of where this might be headed, and I think that's a great thing.
Great. Becca has her hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. I just wanted to maybe support here just the timeline. I think I could imagine folks are sort of looking at this saying, why do we have to make a plan to just try to get everything coordinated? I think folks have just mentioned how complicated it is. So I think it's going to take a while to just sort of sort through how do we best get all these different programs to play nicely in a sandbox together. But I also will just, point out that I think it's really important for us to be pretty nuanced and strategic here. Although, there might be a lot of reasons at an individual building level why a particular building might want all of these technologies. These programs are delivered across the state, ideally providing benefits to all ratepayers. And there are going to be different parts of the grid and different types of buildings that are going to provide more grid benefits and more cost savings to all ratepayers than in other areas. And so I think this plan is going to need to be pretty strategic about where we're trying to deploy these technologies, effectively to again really focus on affordability for everybody. Not necessarily just blanket trying to get all of these technologies in every single building. It definitely is far more nuanced than that. So I think it's going to take a decent amount of planning and effort on everybody's part to figure out how to best optimize all the different objectives of these programs.
Great, thanks. Bernie?
As Bernie, I want to just build on what John just said and what Becca just said. If this was a dive, this would have a high degree of difficulty because I think you're really doing three things at once. You're packaging together three multiple expensive measures. So that's one thing. You're dealing pretty frequently here with landlords, and we all know that conundrum of split incentives. And you're also dealing with low income, so you're selling a bundle of expensive things to people who don't have a ton of money. And I think it's important to sort of tease out those big barriers and recognize what we're up against.
Thanks, Bernie. Brian?
Yeah, so just a couple of observations. I like the PMI, it's super cool. It's kind of planted a seed in my mind for our team as we set goals across the organization. So kind of embedding this goal into my team's goals, outside of the comp plan, I think is really a good strategy. Electric vehicles, yes, yeah, there are lots of great elements here. I think so. I'm going to try to channel Chair Watson a little bit here in her absence. I feel like since she became chair when Eric Brown left his chairmanship, she really put healthy housing for vulnerable communities as kind of her number one priority, trying to lead this committee to get towards joint programs in that activity. So our teams have spent a lot of time over the last 12 months really digging into all the federal programs, be they funding or financing, trying to get our arms around them in different technologies, and then really trying to dig into the most complicated market, which is rentals, right, and our tenants, and probably the most vulnerable. So I think I don't know if it was the last meeting of the joint committee where this proposed draft of an affordable rental and multifamily came from. We just adopted it into our comprehensive plan as guidance. We'll see a little bit of how we're thinking about it when Mackie presents kind of a program that we're working on now and what's happening there. But I think a lot of the intention was to unlock and mobilize private investment in vulnerable communities, kind of unlocking markets that haven't been reached, and making these technologies affordable and accessible so that those families can realize the benefits. So I think that's what we'll navigate here. But I like the idea of somebody helping on coordination. I mean, our teams our utility teams and greenback teams work closely on programs, but having some specific plug points makes sense to me. But those are just my broad observations.
Richard.
Thank you. Brian, we were trying to brainstorm a little bit about who might be best to help sort of facilitate and lead this effort and coordinate. So I think we should start gathering ideas and figure out how to make that happen, because there'll be a little bit of process there to bring somebody on board, and or how that selection process works. So any ideas I think would be welcome.
Cool. Yeah, I think my gut tells me, Becca, just thinking out loud here with the DEEP team, the DOH, Chaffa, Mackie, all of our teams that have been working super hard on the structure side of solar and storage, and we'll hear more about that in a second. But then bringing in Steve, Jillian, whomever at the utility, let's figure out what that looks like on the integration side. That's my initial hunch, but it feels like what we're trying to do here is to stand up the policy and statute around, affordable housing, multifamily affordable housing, and really trying to address a lot of those pre-existing issues and try to help those families come into this clean energy economy. Yeah, I hear you.
Thanks, Brian. And it may end up being two different people, two groups of people, the one on the left versus the one on the right. But however you want to do it. But I like Julian's idea of a kickoff, maybe give some thoughts to who you want to at least start off the kickoff meeting. As we frame it out, we can identify resources, internal or external. Okay. Thanks.
All right. Are we done with comments on this portion? So our next topic is healthy housing.
There you are, Mac. There you go.
Yeah, do you want me to jump right in? Okay.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Mackie Dykes, Vice President of Financing Programs here at the Green Bank. As Brian alluded to just a second ago, he asked me to talk about an effort we have that goes towards at least the resolution that was on the left there about combining solar and efficiency and affordable multifamily housing. I think I've mentioned this in prior meetings, and I don't want to go too deep into it, but a few years ago, there was a policy change with the solar incentive programs that allowed affordable multifamily to qualify for the residential solar incentive program as opposed to the non-residential. Primary benefits of that being the residential incentive is higher, and it's also unlimited as opposed to being lower and competitive and a limited pool of incentive available on the non-residential side. So this really created a market opportunity. But in setting that policy, there was a recognition that if we're going to, essentially give higher incentive and try to juice deployment in this sector, we wanted to do it in a way that allowed the tenants to share in the benefits and towards that goal from the last slide, reduce their energy burden. In tenant metered properties, that's fairly straightforward. It's done by giving them a percentage of the solar revenue on their electric bill. But where it really gets interesting and presents an opportunity to the goal of combining solar and efficiency is in master metered properties. In that case, the tenant does not have an electric bill or a relationship with the utility that they can get the on-bill credit. So in getting the benefit to the tenant, Pura determined that it could be achieved by making an improvement in the property. One of the primary eligible improvements are energy efficiency improvements. So what this means is, an attractive solar project, towards the earlier point of making these projects attractive for landlords while also getting the tenants benefit. From the landlord perspective, this takes a solar project, which the economics are pretty attractive, and the EE components of the tenant portion of that tariff can be used to help fund an energy efficiency improvement. So they get to make a capital improvement to their property. The tenants get a better, healthier, and more energy efficient building. So we, through our solar MAP, or Solar Marketplace Assistance Program, are developing our first portfolio of affordable multifamily projects. It includes 4 master metered properties, which I've laid out here. And we are working with those to identify how the tenant portion of the solar revenue will be used to fund an improvement. 2 of those, or one of them, has made a definite decision they're going to upgrade the windows. So as you see, there's almost 375,000 available in upfront finance or upfront funding for those windows. One of the other properties is focused on a non-energy efficiency improvement, security enhancements. Then we're working with the other 2. But in terms of the challenge that everyone was just speaking to, of how to just coordinate all these programs and ultimately do it in a way that's attractive to a landlord, and while also bringing benefits to tenants, I think the policy and program structure that's developed here does represent a good way of doing that. And through this program, through this first group of projects, we're just trying to get a sense for what the actual implementation of that would look like. So through our MAP program, we're essentially developing these projects for the property owners, and then we bring our new financing products to bear that can get the solar done with no upfront funding for the property owner. And then we're also financing those energy efficiency improvements. So we'll keep the committee updated as this moves forward, and hope to have some great initial stories here that we can use to hopefully scale this effort. That'll turn it back to.
Is there like a, excuse me, is there an agreement with the landlord not to raise the rent on this stuff?
Great question. Yes, that's actually explicit in the we worked in the Pura order to the utilities to develop rules around that. There's a multifamily working group it started with us, CHAFA, the Connecticut Department of Housing, and DEEP. We now have a good amount of both sort of solar market as well as affordable multifamily stakeholders in that. And that was a focus of the working group, is putting together recommendations on how to do those tenant protections. So there's rules about not increasing rent. There's lease addendums that have to be made. So, in many cases for the subsidized properties, there's already rent restrictions in place. So pretty safe there that the rents can't go above affordable levels. But it's in particular, the naturally occurring affordable housing had to develop a suite of restrictions to make sure that the owners just didn't raise the rent and price out the existing tenants.
Bernie has a question.
Thank you. First time I came to one of these joint meetings was I think the last time, and that's where Mackie, I think you presented this program. To be perfectly honest, I could not believe that such a program existed, and I was extremely excited. I sort of went out and started talking to solar developers and people in the advocacy community, and I'll just observe, at least in the circles in which I travel, is not well known. So it might be in the affordable housing circles, maybe everybody knows about this, but this is such an amazing program. As I think Brian and others have said, we do have this sort of Damocles hanging over our head as the new administration takes hold. I would just urge us all to get the word out on this program as quickly and widely as possible, because it is, I hope we can just get more of these things built. And I'm trying in my own town of West Hartford to get more folks interested in it, because it is such an amazing opportunity. So anyway, thanks.
Yeah, no, thanks, Bernie. I have seen the fruits of Bernie's efforts in West Hartford. Thanks so much for the connections you've made. I'm a West Hartford resident as well, so I'm excited of the properties on this list is West Hartford, prominently located right on Main Street. So, hopefully, once we get there's 9 projects overall in our first portfolio. We're hoping once we get some, actual projects built and some case studies that we can use those to really highlight the opportunity here. Because I agree, Bernie, it's not very well known. We've been making the rounds at all the affordable housing conferences and get-togethers to try to raise the profile, but we're just not there yet. And as one housing authority executive director said to me, like, no one likes to in this space likes to be the first mover. So she thought that as soon as we get some examples that everyone's kind of interested, they like hear about solar, so once they see that it can be done so well and so economically in a way that brings such a benefit to tenants, I think we could hopefully unlock a lot more.
Godspeed.
And I'm wondering, with the energy efficiency improvements, is that intended to leverage the CNLM programs? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. The just pulling up the Bureau order, which made its way into the newly filed RES program guidelines. The measures have to meet the technical specs of the CNLM program, specifically the multifamily initiative, and you have to contact, and as part of the program, you're required to go to the utility. I mean, not that you'd want to leave money on the table anyway, but make sure you're coordinating with the utility so that you're getting the CNLM incentives, getting their assistance, in terms of putting the project together. And really, this is almost just like another, from the landlord's perspective, this is just like another incentive on top of the CNLM funding. So I think this is Pura did a good job of designing this in a way that it's coordinated with all the existing programs.
Okay, there's no other questions. Sounds great.
Let's see, we may have lost you, Melissa. You there? There, yeah, there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah, who's presenting on this next agenda item?
It's kind of like just an open session for any of the groups to speak here. I guess I would just throw out there at a high level, from the Green Bank's perspective, given a lot of what's happened this past year in terms of climate related impacts to Connecticut, that we're really focused in on resilience, as evidenced by our expansion of CPACE to support resilience projects and the Smarty loan. So both of those financing products give individual families, individual property owners the access to capital that they need to finance resilience improvements. But we know when it comes to climate adaptation and resilience that you really also need a community approach. So standing behind the governor and supporting resilience improvement districts. Looking at SB 11, engaging the insurance industry in the more investments that families and businesses and communities do to make themselves more resilient, there should be an economic interest from the insurance industry to transfer savings to those property owners. So we're currently in a lot of those dialogues through Insurance Commissioner Andrew Mays and his work through the Advisory Council. So that's probably our focus looking ahead, is getting our arms around resilience. Decarbonization obviously is super, super important. All our programs are really digging in there, but we really want to identify ways of opening markets for private investment that's going to lead to increased resilience from our communities. So that's an area we're working on. I don't know, Brian, James, if you wanted to add to that, but I thought I'd throw that out there.
Man, I don't know how I can add to that. No, that was perfect. And I think what we can do for resiliency this upcoming legislative session, especially being a long session, there's an opportunity there. We don't want to miss that opportunity to get something passed that's going to have a real impact.
Bernie has a question.
If I could just make an observation, typically in a legislative session, we ask for something we don't have, something that would move us forward. I fear that in this session, we are going to have to defend what we have now. In particular, and very unfortunately, the public benefit charge has become a political mess. And most of our funding, I think, for the Green Bank and for conservation load management, the small amounts of money that come off an electric bill or a gas bill come out of that fund, but it's got mixed up. So I think there will be a move. I mean, I think there's 100,000 signatures to remove the public benefit charge. I can't believe it will be successful in total, but folks on this call collectively, I think we're going to have to spend some of our energy defending, along with asking for other things.
Yeah, I was going to mention that too. And I also will note that typically the EEB doesn't get involved with legislative session other than to provide reporting on the programs. But I think that some of us are more interested in having a more active role and making sure that legislators understand the benefits of these programs. Because they do not currently, from my personal experience. But I'm also interested in hearing anything from Deep in terms of what they're looking at for the legislative session coming up. I think that's John that has a question. Yeah.
Yeah, or just to Brian had talked about, what other groups might be pursuing the Connecticut Roundtable on Climate and Jobs will continue to advocate for a statewide clean school program that would solarize as many of the public schools throughout the state as possible.
Great. I don't know. Can I put back on the spot and ask does Deep have any comments about this?
Sure, Belinda. I'll see. I'm not sure if Joe's still been able to stay on, but I'll hand the mic to him too to add. But I would say my understanding of upcoming legislative session is there's clearly a focus on and concern around energy affordability, and I think that is the key focus for most folks going in, and so would agree that the importance of efficiency in reducing costs for everyone probably needs to be reiterated and shared with data. But then the impacts on all of our programs and the benefits that they're providing, and again, the affordability benefits particularly, I think is something we all need to make sure we're messaging around. But that's it. Again, Joe, I don't know if you're able to come off mute, but if so, if you have anything to add, please do hop in. You're closer to legislation than I am.
Yeah, Becca, I think you're absolutely right. The focus is on affordability. I guess we're running late right now. Generally at this stage, we've gotten more guidance on our agenda. So we have a few proposals that are still pending, waiting to determine whether they're going to become a proposed bill or not. So we really can't comment in much more detail. I would say, though, that in the area of affordability, we are looking at our current procurement authority, and that's likely to be an area where we not seek huge changes, but I think there needs to be some refinements made there, including possibly our authority around energy efficiency procurements, where we're fairly tightly constrained right now. So not sure that's going to go forward, but that would be one area most relevant to this group that we are exploring.
All right, if there are no other comments around that, we can move on to other business.
Good. oh. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Brian. So, yes, Steve had to drop off, so I'll substitute for him on the slides on agenda. Is it 8A and 8B? So, my name is Gentiana Daragiati, and I work for Eversource in Energy Efficiency Department and work with Steve, Diane, and Gani and others in this call. So Eversource during 2024 did good as far as small business and muni and state financing. So far, we have completed, finalized 3 loan sales. We do loan sales on off quarters. So as we speak next week, we are closing the 4th of the year, the tranche 4th. So the all energy efficiency loan, CNI, is for small business muni and state loans. We fund them in-house and then sell them to the banks, Green Bank and Amalgamated Bank. So far, since inception's total loan sold to the banks has been a little bit over 15 million, including the last tranche, which will close next week, as I mentioned. As only this year, the number of small business, muni, and state loans have been above 500 number of loans of projects that we are closing in 2024. So we started this selling the loans in 2018, December of 2018, and since then have been over 7,600 projects, loans to our small business and governmental customers. So as of inception has been over 113 million that we sold to the banks. And based on the customer repayments, so the loans were sold and on a monthly basis, we pay the banks on the customer repayments that these loans are all on bill. So we pay back and what customer pays. Based on that, like 113, like with the 4th tranche will be somewhere to 113 million loans sold. The outstanding balance is close to 24 million. So we are doing good as far as customer collections, getting the loans paid by the customers. Our intent is to extend this, and we will gonna do that in alignment with our 2025-2027 CNLM plan. I don't know if it's any question.
Yeah. Hi, Gentiana. It's George
Good
Lawrence.
morning. Hi, George.
I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but historically, on-bill financing for small businesses have had a fairly low default rate, like 1 or 1.5%. I don't know
Yep.
if that's still true these days, or if things have gotten more chaotic with COVID and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, with it's really, so it is still, has been increased. It's based on the loan origination, we are still in 1%, but during the COVID years, we saw a lot of defaults.
Okay, so
So
it did
it
go up. Is
was,
it going
it
back
did
down
go up.
again, or?
No, so now it is better maintained, but we had a lot of defaults between 2021, 2022, and then in 2023.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All
Thank
right,
you.
that was both. All right, we talked about government, small and medium, large business. So next item is residential.
I think we hit on a lot of this just kind of in the earlier dialogue. So not much to add here. I guess maybe the only thing I would add that's somewhat related here into the prior is that in our partnership with Eversource on SBEA, we all know that 80%, no less than 80% of that capital comes from Amalgamated Bank, and then the Connecticut Green Bank is the remaining 10 to 20%. What we've been trying to do is to bring the crowd into that investment cycle with our portion by working with Raise Green, a crowdfunder, so that Connecticut citizens can invest in supporting the efficiency of small businesses. Raise Green was recently, this is all public, recently acquired by Honeycomb. Our board made a decision for us to transition from Raise Green to Honeycomb to continue with these quarterly offers. We're excited by Honeycomb. It has been in the crowdfunding market for a longer period of time, has done more transactions, does a lot more work with small businesses. So we envision not only continuing with our quarterly raises to support some of the capital needs here of the SBEA from the crowd, but also hopefully getting to Bernie, you'd be interested in this very project specific raises. So stay tuned. We're going to continue to innovate. You could think of kind of like Sustainable CT's community match grant. This would be a loan, an investment in community projects, very similar. So we're excited to be bringing that hopefully into the market in 2025, if not 2026. It's kind of another business item.
Okay. Wait, did anybody want to do the residential, or is there anything, there's nothing related to that?
Yeah, nothing. We covered the Smarty earlier with the DOE revolving loan fund and then the multifamily affordable housing.
Okay. All right, so are there any last comments before we open it up to the public? Okay. Do any of the public have any comments? Raise your hand. Hearing none, is there a movement to, you've got John, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, all this stuff seems to sometimes get or seem routine, but there is no more important business than what we're doing, which is trying to eliminate carbon from the atmosphere. The world depends on this. The world depends on these little small meetings and the progress that we may make, and always pushing for more progress in order to preserve the future. So if you think that, you just got done with a meeting and check it off the list, take a moment to just realize the importance of what we're doing, and we're at the end of the year, so New Year's resolution is to just fight like hell in the new year for continuing and expanding this work. Thanks.
Thanks. All right. Is there a movement to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
I can second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah.
Happy holidays.
To you
Take care,
too.
folks.
Thank
Thanks
you.
all. Bye.
Happy
Thank you.
holidays. Take care.
Bye-bye.